Alright guys, so let's get to it. So in this video we're going to talk about what to do if an account comes back verified. A lot of you guys might have had problems with just going back and forth with the credit reporting agencies and different creditors, and here's the deal. So what you want to do is you want to move on to focusing on the investigation and how the credit reporting agency carried out their investigation, and that's where you're going to find a lot of the violations. We're not taking it as far as, suing them in this video,
Right.
but as far as being able to understand what violations they're committing against you so that you can start putting a leg up on this thing, okay? So let's start right here, okay? This is IRS form SSA, 3288, right? And this is consent for release of information. Any company that has your information is supposed to be able to furnish that they have this signed from you.
Right.
Okay? So when we're asking them to verify or validate an account, the credit reporting agencies, when they go and verify that account, they're supposed to receive a document very similar, if not this, showing that you signed this and gave them permission to be able to release your information, okay? So that's number one.
And that's going to be one of your biggest fighting factors when it comes to your information, you know, and when things are coming back verified, because when it comes down to it, you've never given them permission.
Right.
Like written permission, verbal permission, like there was no permission given, no consent given whatsoever.
None.
So that's why we wanted to start off by showing you that form, because, you know, when we were doing our research, that was the first time that we've ever seen a letter like that. You know, like we've never signed anything like that before. So I'm sure the same goes for all of you. So we're going to really dive into the specific law as well as the privacy, what's it called? Gramm-Leach.
Gramm-Leach-Bliley.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in those, like this law that you're seeing right here, this is what we're going to go over. And this is what you're really going to use to start really investigating their investigation, okay? But before we get into those, I want to talk about these two. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act, guys, right? This is the whole basis of everything once again. Congressional findings, like the very first thing in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, right? There's a need to ensure that the consumer reporting agencies exercise their grave responsibilities with fairness, impartiality, and respect to the consumer's right to privacy, okay? So if this consent form is respect to your privacy, they don't.
They're not respecting your privacy.
Right.
They're completely disrespecting your privacy.
Correct. And B, reasonable procedures, right? It is the purpose of this subchapter to require that the consumer reporting agencies adopt reasonable procedures for meeting the needs of commerce for consumer credit. So basically for your credit report, they're supposed to follow reasonable procedures, right? Which means they need to respect your privacy. So when they're doing an investigation, are they really carrying out with reasonable procedures?
And who's saying that their procedures are reasonable?
Right.
You
And fairness, right? So how is it fair if they're ignoring everything that you're saying, but they're listening to everything that the creditor is saying and just deeming an account verified?
And this is why it's so important to go and study these laws so that you can read them for yourself and understand them and diagnose them for yourself and interpret them for yourself so that you can use them in your dispute letters. Because when you're writing your dispute letters, you can quote multiple laws because they're violating you in multiple ways, you know? So it's really important that, you know, not only do you go through our course and really study what we teach you, but go and do your own research as well.
Right. And we will provide a letter after going through all of this, a letter template, right? Where it's that, okay, I could insert some of the issues that I'm having specifically, but we want to still provide you a template for you to, you know, have something to go off of.
Yeah, and our templates will be more like a guide, you know, like you want to use it as like your stepping stone, like, so that way you don't have just a blank page in front of you on where to begin.
Right. So how is it fair if they keep verifying an account that you're saying is inaccurate on your credit report, and they can't even show you that they have proof that that company has the right to disclose that information of yours?
Correct.
Okay. So here's the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. Basically, this is this came about basically to protect consumers' non-public information. So your private information that you don't want out there, this law protects us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Protects us heavily. Every credit institution that, I'll read it through real quick, not the whole thing, but it is the policy of the Congress that each financial institution has an affirmative and continuing obligation to respect the privacy of its customers and protect the security and confidentiality of those customers' non-public personal information, right? So they're supposed to be protecting this information.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are sharing it, they're supposed to have those disclosures saying that they have your consent to disclose it.
Right.
They don't. And in their disputes, when they say verified, that's not verifying an account. We're going to get into it, guys. We're going to get into it.
Yeah.
So let's get out of this one, okay? This is just another one. Initial privacy notice to consumers required, right? So basically, they're supposed to notify you if they're sharing any of your information. All companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're verifying an account, they should also be showing this disclosure as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they don't have this neither.
Mm-hmm.
It's so many of them that they don't have.
Right.
Now, if you were going after them for monetary gain or like not monetary gain, but monetary relief,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, all of these are violations that
Right.
this is when you see people with checks saying Equifax paid me, or you saw a check with like a collection company paid me. They're just marking up each and every single violation and they're putting it right in their face and they're
Sending
taking
them
it
an
to
invoice.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that opened twice.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's jump into the law then. Okay. I'll get this out of here too. And I do have some notes, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'll be able to share them.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a little
I have
funny.
some here that I'll read too that we have taken.
All right, cool. So, 15 U.S. Code 1681I, procedures in case of disputed accuracy. So this is the law that we need to leverage
Mm-hmm.
when we've already submitted a dispute and they gave us some BS on the return, okay?
Right.
Because we're looking at the procedures that they took when we disputed that account. We're disputing the account because it's inaccurate,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Okay. Just breaking it down all the way as much as I can, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I've read this so many times. I'll let you read it, I guess.
You want me to start at A?
Sure.
All right. So basically what we're reading is this, all of this is the investigation process and the procedures that they really need to follow.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's going to be specific things that they owe you from the investigation, right? That
Mhm.
most people don't even know that they are owed and have never received such things. So just stick with us. We're going to break things down as we go through it, but I just wanted you to understand that there's procedures
Mhm.
that they need to be following and they're not. So we'll start at letter A, subject to subsection F.
Hold on, wait. We definitely can't skip over the fact that it says re-investigation.
Okay.
Because the initial investigation was supposed to go through when they were actually furnishing it
I'm sorry, I was
initially
looking at
on
the
your
wrong
credit
letter
report.
A. I thought I started
Right.
down there. That's my bad.
Like, the initial investigation is supposed to be carried out when they actually post it on your credit report, which they don't do. They just go ahead and they post it on your credit report.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is the re-investigation because now you're disputing it for accuracy.
Well, and think about this too, because this is how so much fraud happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if somebody goes out there and has access to your social security number and you don't have things, locked up and secured, they can throw anything on there. You know what I mean? And they're not validating that it's really you. They don't
Right.
you don't get a phone call that it's really you. You don't know
Mhm.
until you go to pull your credit or you look at your credit.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't even look at their credit.
Right.
So they don't know until it's a bigger issue than them, So, reinvestigation of disputed information. Reinvestigation required. So, letter A, in general, subject to subsection F, and except as provided in subsection G of the completeness or accuracy of any item of information contained in a consumer's file at a consumer reporting agency, and TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian are consumer reporting agencies.
Mhm.
Okay, they are not bureaus. So anytime a consumer reporting agency is written within the law, they're talking about Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, as well as the secondary consumer reporting agencies as well. So,
Mhm.
is at a consumer reporting agency is disputed by the consumer and the consumer notifies the agency directly or indirectly through a reseller of such dispute, the agency shall, free of charge, conduct a reasonable reinvestigation to determine whether the disputed information is inaccurate and record the current status of the disputed information or delete the item, repeat, delete the item from the file in accordance with paragraph 5 before the end of the 30-day period beginning on the date on which the agency receives the notice. Okay, let me just highlight that. The 30-day period beginning on the date on which the agency receives, so that's when Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian receive your notice of dispute, okay? That's when the 30-day period begins. It's not when you mail it from your house. And this is also why it's so important that when you're mailing things in, that you are sending it certified mail, because you want to make sure that you keep copies of all of that, because that's your evidence for your case, okay? Think of yourself as your own lawyer, okay? You're fighting for yourself, okay? So that's why it's important to keep that paper trail.
I'm fighting for my life.
That's why it's important to have that paper trail so that you can catch them if they screw up, okay? Like, you want to have that physical evidence, proof that you can prove if they do fall outside of that 30-day window, that you can catch them on it and you can report them and they have to delete it, okay?
So the thing that I want to highlight in this area is reasonable reinvestigation. Reasonable investigation. Like, is it reasonable?
Right.
Like, how is it reasonable if they don't have all of the things that are required? And I'm going to get down to actually all of the contents inside. So I'll do section B.
And just really quick though, I just want to touch on some of the things that we're going to have within the letter, like just based off of our notes here, right? So you really want to ask them in your letter, like, you please provide evidence of your reasonable procedures that you use to come to this conclusion that this information is verified, you know? Like, how did you come to such a determination? What information did you use? Please provide full documentation of the communications regarding this matter. Who did you talk to? When did you talk to them? What phone numbers did you contact them at? What addresses did you use? This is all information that you have a right to receive because it's all part of the investigation.
Right.
And I've seen before where these credit reporting agencies will try to say, oh, we don't have that information. And that's BS.
Right.
They're just trying to stall you and trip you up. Like,
all
that's
you have to do is
BS.
Screenshot your CFPB report that you submitted that information.
Yep.
Document everything. I mean, and if you did it certified mail, then you have proof of that too. Maybe you need to take a picture. Like, they bugging out, you need to take a picture maybe, right? Of you putting it into the envelope, you know, whatever you have to do.
Yep.
But, yeah.
We're at letter B now. Okay. Extension of period to reinvestigate. Except as provided in subparagraph C, the 30-day period described in subparagraph A, which is what we just spoke about, right, may be extended for not more than 15 additional days. So that would bring the full investigation to 45 days. If the consumer reporting agency, meaning Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, receives information from you, the consumer, or from another, company during that 30-day period that is relevant to the reinvestigation. So that's why it's so important that you wait for the investigation to, be completed too. You don't want to just keep sending them more information because that's only going to hurt you. Think about, we say this a lot, think about all of the disputes that these consumer reporting agencies are getting on a daily basis. They're bound to trip up and have to go beyond the 30 days at some point.
Exactly. I feel like one of the things that they do is they have that window already, and then they'll say, hey, look, send us the same information that you already submitted.
And I think they're doing that on purpose.
Right, because it gives them more time to keep investigating.
Yep.
Because they know that they don't have enough time to do it.
Right, so they're trying to buy themselves an additional 15 days. And you, if you're not in our course or haven't gone through our course and you don't know, you're of course going to be like, oh, well, maybe they didn't get it. And this is also why we say that not only should you be completing it with the CFPB, but you should also be sending it certified mail as well. And if you can upload it, if you have access to the fax numbers, like however you want to send them information, you can send it to them in, multiple ways to make sure that they do receive that information.
Right. And slow progress is better than no progress. Like when I was doing it, I was a little slow. Like I need to go to the post office today. But at the end of the day, I went eventually. So slow progress is better than no progress.
Yeah.
Just get them in there.
And I would also suggest going and sending the mail before you file the CFPB, only because it's going to take a couple days for them to actually receive the certified mail. It takes about, 2 days, something like that? 2 to 3 days, something like that.
Yeah, 3 days.
I would definitely mail out the letters first and then, send that same package through the CFPB as well.
Right.
But you want me to move on to letter C now? Limitations on extension?
Yeah.
So there are limitations, okay, on extension of period to reinvestigate, that 15 days that we just spoke about. Subparagraph B, which we just spoke about, shall not apply to any reinvestigation in which during the 30-day period described in subparagraph A, okay, the information that is the subject of the reinvestigation is found to be inaccurate or incomplete, or the Consumer Reporting Agency determines that the information cannot be verified. So this happens sometimes too, right, where they decide that the information is inaccurate or incomplete, and they do that before the 30 days are even up, okay? And that's, of course, to your benefit. So this is just saying that they can't extend it another 15 days if they've already said that the information's inaccurate, incomplete, or it can't be verified. So then that 15 days extension goes out the window. That's basically what it's saying.
All right. So in section 2, they talk about prompt notice of dispute to furnisher of information. So basically, within 5 business days, the consumer reporting agencies are supposed to notify any furnisher of any information that is in that dispute. So if we're disputing against Capital One, they need to contact Capital One about this dispute and notify them within 5 business days of them receiving your complaint, okay? So if they got it by mail, they got it by CFPB, you need to be watching the time frames. How could they
verify that they received it? So you could call Capital One, right? Also, after the reinvestigation has been completed and you are requesting, that information, the proof of them speaking with Capital One, who they spoke to, what their emails were, if they were emailing back and forth, what was spoken about, like the proof, the evidence.
You're investigating. You are running an investigation on it as well. Right.
So within that proof, if they did not send over the required information that you have sent them to that company. So like if you sent, let's say you sent like a statement or something along with your dispute on Capital One, right? And they didn't send that to Capital One. That's a violation. Like if they didn't send that, especially within the 5 business days, right? So these are just different violations that you can trip them up on. It's not something that you necessarily have to focus on like the entire time, but if you're really serious about, getting this collection or this account removed from your credit report, it's really important that you follow multiple different things that they can violate you on. So that way you can get an account removed, right? Because it only takes one violation.
Right. And it's not your fault that the law is set up where is that if an account is being reported inaccurately because they don't have all of the disclosures that are necessary for them to report an account, like it's okay for you to run an investigation because the credit bureaus, like it said, they're supposed to be running a thorough investigation as well. So you're running one as well. Right. You can call and ask if, hey, this account, I have this, or I've seen this account on my credit report. My name is X, Y, and Z, but it's inaccurate.
And it's saying in here too, that last sentence down here. Okay, so it's saying that the notice that they're supposed to send the furnisher within the 5 days shall include all relevant information regarding the dispute that the agency has received from the consumer, meaning you.
All right, sorry guys, we just got cut off. So where were we? We were just talking about the 5 business days that they have to investigate. And like we were saying, like it's okay for you to investigate an account and like call to ask like, hey, I submitted a dispute with TransUnion.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what date did they contact you, and did they contact you, like things of that nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you can find out if they're carrying out a thorough and reasonable investigation.
And something that you could do to collect that evidence, you can send an email to the company, or you could call them and you could record the call. Because, they record your call all the time, so, it is what it is. So, provision of other information. The Consumer Reporting Agency, which again is those 3 credit reporting agencies, shall promptly provide to the person, which is the furnisher, who provided the information in dispute all relevant information regarding the dispute that is received by the agency from the consumer or the reseller after the period referred to in subparagraph A and before the end of the period referred to in paragraph 1A. All right? So let's talk about determination that dispute is frivolous or irrelevant. So letter A, in general. Notwithstanding paragraph 1, a consumer reporting agency may terminate a reinvestigation of information disputed by a consumer, meaning you, under that paragraph if the agency reasonably determines that the dispute by you is frivolous or irrelevant, including by reason of a failure by a consumer to provide sufficient information to investigate the disputed information.
Okay.
So the way that we teach you guys to dispute is to use, identity theft, because in actuality they are committing identity theft because they don't have that form that we spoke about before, that social security form, where you're saying that you're giving them consent to report that information to your credit report and to release your private information. Like, you're not giving them that, right? So this really wouldn't apply to you. Yes, it does happen every once in a while, that frivolous or irrelevant information, okay? But this is why we teach you from the beginning to make sure that your letters make sense. Right? Like, you want to make sure that everything is really, like, airtight, and things like what you're disputing and the laws that you're using in your disputes make sense. Because if it doesn't make any sense to them, they're just going to throw it away.
And again, what is considered a reasonable determination?
Right.
Like, you are going to be the person who determines that, because if they didn't follow all of the procedures, how can it be reasonable? And you just want to make sure that you're submitting all of the required documents for them to actually carry out a dispute. You need a proof of identity. You need proof of address. You need your affidavit, and you need a complaint. Okay. So B, notice of determination. Upon making a determination in accordance with subparagraph A that a dispute is frivolous or irrelevant, a consumer reporting agency shall notify the consumer of such determination no later than 5 business days after making a determination. So basically, if they say that your dispute is frivolous, or they're ignoring it or whatever, they need to let you know that within 5 days of them making that decision. There's really no way for you to be able to tell when they made that decision, but at the end of the day, they still only have a certain amount of time to respond to you depending on what you're disputing.
And how it says there that they can respond via mail to you, like to send that determination to you, or if authorized by the consumer for that purpose, or by any means available to the agency. So that just basically means that if, with Capital One, right, you can sign up for their credit monitoring services. So you're giving Capital One authority to access your, like, credit profile or whatever, and like they have your email, right? So they can contact you that way. So that's why it's important to also keep an eye on your emails, because you might get some responses from the credit reporting agencies via email.
All right. So context of the notice.
Contents.
I don't know why I always say that. Context.
It's kind of the same
This
thing.
is one of the most important parts. So inside of that notice, when they're telling you, like, look, this account's being verified or whatever, they're supposed to have a notice. The notice shall include the reasons for determination, identification of any information required to investigate the disputed information, which may consist of standardized form, of a standardized form describing the general nature of such information. So basically, they're supposed to tell you, what did they use in their investigation? How did they come to this determination? And 9 times out of 10, when you guys are getting these verification letters back, or just like these emails, they're not providing this. They're not telling you how they carried out their investigation. That's what we want to know. Okay? Consideration of consumer information. I'll let you do this one.
In conducting any reinvestigation under paragraph 1 with respect to disputed information in the file of any consumer, the Consumer Reporting Agency shall review and consider all relevant information submitted by you, the consumer, in the period described in paragraph 1 with respect to such disputed information. So that just means within your initial 30 days. Okay? So treatment of inaccurate or unverifiable information. Letter A in general, if after any reinvestigation under paragraph 1 of any information disputed by you, the consumer, an item of the information is found to be inaccurate or incomplete or cannot be verified, the Consumer Reporting Agency shall promptly delete that item of information from the file of the consumer, meaning they should just delete it from your credit report, or modify that item of information as appropriate based on the results of the reinvestigation, and promptly notify the furnisher of that information that the information has been modified or deleted from the file of the consumer. So that's basically saying that they need, if they're going to be deleting it, they're going to be deleting it if the information is found to be inaccurate or incomplete or can't be verified. And they have that 30 days to do that, as long as you don't send them any other additional information, which would allow them to have an additional 15 days like we talked about. So as long as it's within that 30-day period and they can't verify it, they can't find it to be accurate or complete, then they have to remove it.
And they can't just let it sit there.
Right.
And if they didn't properly verify it, then it also needs to be deleted. They may think they verified it, but if they didn't properly verify it, well, that's a violation, because you didn't properly verify an account, but you still let it sit on my credit report. Okay?
Right.
So we're at B? All right, we're halfway there. Requirements relating to reinsertion of previously deleted material, okay? So, I, certification of accuracy of information. If any information is deleted from a consumer's file from your credit report pursuant to subparagraph A, the information may not be reinserted in the file by the consumer reporting agencies unless the person who furnished the information certifies that the information is complete and accurate. So you need to see some type of certification that they acknowledge that the account is complete and it's accurate. You also need you need proof of that disclosure, right?
Right. So a lot of times what happens when something gets reinserted onto your credit file, this can have, most of the time it's because it was a collection to begin with, right? It's not usually being reinserted by the original creditor. Sometimes yes, but most of the time it's because that collection, that debt was sold to another collection agency. So now another collection company is trying to collect on the debt, right? So now you have to go after them. Additional information is where you are now, right here.
Okay. Additional, as part of or in addition to the notice under clause
II.
A consumer reporting agency shall provide to a consumer in writing not later than 5 days after the date. So if something gets inserted back onto your credit report, they need to notify you within 5 days. It shouldn't be like, if, let's say you read your credit report every 30 days and you notice that this was on your account, but you didn't receive any notice. That's a violation, okay?
Yep. So it says a statement that the disputed information has been reinserted, the business name and address of any furnisher of information contacted, and the telephone number of such furnisher if reasonably available, or of any furnisher of information that contacted the consumer reporting agency in connection with the reinsertion of such information, and a notice that the consumer, you, have the right to add a statement to the consumer's file disputing the accuracy or completeness of the disputed information. Okay? Yeah, very powerful stuff. But when it comes down to it, too, you have a right to privacy, right? And your privacy is being violated constantly. So, you know, that's why we spoke about it from the very beginning, because it's important to also include, along with this law and the different subchapters and subsections of this law, that you're including those that apply, number one, and number two, that you're speaking on your right to privacy as well. Like, you want to make sure that you're referencing that in your letter as well.
Right. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you can just start with that.
Yep.
Congressional findings, right to privacy.
So procedures to prevent reappearance.
A consumer reporting agency shall maintain reasonable procedures designed to prevent the reappearance in a consumer's file. So those reasonable procedures are that they're supposed to have those disclosures and all of the information to prove that the account is accurate, so that they can actually furnish it on your credit report. Without all of those things, they're not following reasonable procedures. It's not fair to you, okay? So just an automated reinvestigation system. So basically, all consumer reporting agencies are supposed to have an automated system to basically read all of these disputes that they're getting, okay? That system is supposed to help them to find inaccuracies and incomplete accounts, so that, you know, if they're not supposed to be in your consumer file, they're supposed to be removed, right? But a lot of times it's working against us because it's for their monetary gain. Okay. Results of reinvestigation.
All right. Notice of results of reinvestigation.
Notice of results of reinvestigation. All right.
So in general, a consumer reporting agency shall provide written notice to you, the consumer, of the results of a reinvestigation under this subsection not later than 5 business days after the completion of the reinvestigation, by mail, or if authorized by the consumer for that purpose, by any other means available to the agency. So that's when your email comes into play as well. Okay? And here are the contents that need to be a part of that notice, that written notice that you're receiving either by mail or by email. And this is really important because these, important. Yeah, we'll just get into it. So contents, as part of or in addition to the notice under subparagraph A, a consumer reporting agency shall provide to you, the consumer, in writing before the expiration of the 5-day period referred to in subparagraph A, a statement that the reinvestigation is completed, which most people get that. You know, they at least get that saying that it's been completed.
It's complete.
And it's been verified. A consumer report that is based upon the consumer's file, as that file is revised as a result of the reinvestigation. So basically that's just saying a copy of your credit report, okay? A notice that, if requested by the consumer, a description of the procedure used to determine the accuracy and completeness of the information. So before I even continue, I just want to note there where it says, if requested by the consumer. So that's why when you are asking for a reinvestigation, right, you want to ask for and request a description of the procedures used to determine the accuracy and completeness. Because if they then come back again and they don't provide that to you, they're in violation because you requested it. Because notice how it says, if requested by the consumer. So if you don't request it, they don't need to give it to you.
Exactly.
So it's important that you request that information because you have the right to do so. So it says, determine the accuracy and completeness of the information shall be provided to the consumer, you, by the agency, including the business name and address of any furnisher of information contacted in connection with such information, and the telephone number of such furnisher, if reasonably available, which just means, like, if that's how they contacted them. So if they contacted them via email, you know, they should be able to provide those emails that were sent back and forth. Because here's how verification works for the most part, right? I was in corporate America and I was in banking. Anytime any department needed to contact another bank, there's always another department. It doesn't matter if it's a credit card company, a bank, you know, any other company that extends credit, there is a department within there, whether it's their like accounting department, their billing department, their they might have like a fraud department, right? Or just like accounting, not accounting, but accounts department. Somebody that, or a section of that company that is in charge of the accounts at their place of business, right? The people that they've have credit cards out to or lines of credit out to, so on and so forth. So basically what these credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are doing is they're sending a simple email, right? They're supposed to be forwarding your information, which half the time they aren't necessarily doing. They're just saying, hey, we have this name, here's the account number. They might even include the balance, maybe some other information. They might say, can you verify that they have an account with you? And that's literally all the person's doing. They're just verifying that you have an account with them. They're not verifying the accuracy of the information or doing a proper investigation of the information that you're disputing. Okay, half the time they're not even sending your dispute over to them. Mm-hmm. So that's why, again, it's really important that you gather all of that evidence and all of that information. And it also says a notice that the consumer has the right to add a statement to the consumer's file, disputing the accuracy or completeness of the information. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to explain that part?
Yeah, so like in that response, they're supposed to have a part where it says you can respond to this if you feel like this isn't like, mm-hmm. if you feel like this isn't a fair procedure or mm-hmm. you feel like this is not right. Mm-hmm. So they're supposed to let you know that you can like submit another dispute again.
Mm-hmm. And then a notice that the consumer, you, have the right to request under subsection D that the consumer reporting agency furnish notifications under that subsection. So that's just saying that they've furnished the notifications on your credit report. Mm-hmm. Okay. Whew. So,
we're almost done. This right here is like the main closing part.
Yeah. So number 7, description of reinvestigation procedure. Mm-hmm. A consumer reporting agency shall provide to you, the consumer, and I always say you, the consumer, because I feel like it makes more sense when I'm explaining. Mm-hmm. So a consumer reporting agency shall provide to you, the consumer, a description referred to in paragraph 6B III mm-hmm. by not later than 15 days after receiving a request from the consumer for that description. So again, this is just another way that they can violate you, just like those 5 days that they have, so just keep that in mind as you're going through your dispute.
So when you want that, like when you say, hey, I want the description of your investigation, I want mm-hmm. all of the information, they only have 15 days more before they can respond to you with how they did that. Like, they mm-hmm. need to provide you that information within 15 days.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, you can read that one.
Expedited dispute resolution. I'm not going to read this all the way through. So, basically, mm-hmm. it's saying, like, if something was disputed off of your account within 3 days, mm-hmm. then they don't have to do all of those things as far as send you a notice and all those extra things. Like if it's off, right. then they don't have to send you all those notices.
Yeah, so you can read through this if you want, but it's basically all stuff that's in your favor. It's just saying that if the account has been disputed and it's not, they couldn't verify it and they've deleted it, then they don't have to send you, those different things that we just talked about that they mm-hmm. need to send because it's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Statement of dispute. If the reinvestigation does not resolve the dispute, mm-hmm. the consumer may file a brief statement setting forth the nature of the dispute. The consumer reporting agency may limit such statements to not more than 100 words if it provides the consumer with assistance in writing in a clear summary of the dispute. So what this is basically saying is that your statement, when you send it into them, it shouldn't be more than 150 words.
100 words. 100 words.
Oh my goodness. That's
mm-hmm.
it? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm a little dyslexic, but look, 100 words, you guys. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you want to get to the point. You want to make sure that you're hitting all of the points as far as, hey, what procedures did you follow? Who did you contact? When did you contact them? How did you contact them? And just get it over. Like we said, we're going to put together a 100-word template for you guys, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, statement. Notification of consumer dispute and subsequent consumer report. Whenever a statement of a dispute is filed, unless there is reasonable grounds to believe that it is frivolous or irrelevant, once again reasonable, the Consumer Reporting Agency shall, in subsequent consumer report shall in any subsequent consumer report containing the information in question clearly note that it is disputed by the consumer and provide either the consumer statement or a clear and accurate content. So basically, this is why you have remarks on your credit report. When you get remarks, Credit Karma and things of that nature, they have to add a remark if you are disputing the account.
Yes.
Notification of disputed deletion.
Notification of deletion.
All right, yeah, so I know the summary of this here too.
Go ahead.
It's basically when something is deleted, you're supposed to be notified, and any company that you've tried to get credit from within the last 6 months. Okay?
And that also goes for job applications as well. So any company that you maybe applied for a job and they pulled your credit report and they denied you the position or the opportunity to take advantage of the position due to your credit, which has happened to me in the past, then they have to send them a letter letting them know that that information has been deleted from your credit report, and they have to allow for you to have another chance, basically.
Let me see, where was I?
Treatment of complaints to Congress and stuff. That's where we were.
All right. Compile all complaints that it receives a file of a consumer that is maintained by a consumer reporting agency described. I'm not really sure right here.
That's where you were talking about how they have 6 months.
Okay. Excuse me. Complaints received or obtained by the Bureau pursuant to its investigation authority under the Consumer Fund shall not be subject to paragraph 1. Agency responsibilities. Each consumer reporting agency described that receives a complaint transmitted by the Bureau's person. So this is basically just talking about that the consumer reporting agencies must respond to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They're the only bureau, okay?
Yeah, so anytime you see the word bureau, they're talking about the CFPB.
And they need to review each complaint thoroughly and all of that. Follow all of the procedures that they're supposed to follow when coming to a determination. This isn't that important. Annual report. All right, yeah.
Veteran
yeah, so that's basically the basis of all of what you guys need to know when it comes to. You need to study this law through and through and see if they have violated you in their investigation, because they're supposed to follow these procedures, you guys, okay? We're going to put together a 100-word template for you guys to use, but it's very important that you watch this video. You study all the laws that I pulled up here. You need to study them, because when you're calling the credit bureaus, if you don't know what ground you're standing on, you might as well not even be standing. You might as well not be calling.
Right.
You're just winging it at that point. You're wasting a lot of time. But if you know, like, there's so many of these things that they're violating, guys. There's so many violations. If you know just one or two of them, you'll have a much higher success rate when you call. Okay? And remember, it's best to call very short, soon as you know that they have it, because they're supposed to provide all relevant information. So when you provide that information in your dispute, all those documents, what you want to do and what you want to ask is, hey, did you get my dispute or my complaint? If you send it in by mail, then you know what you put in the mail. Like, they don't got it. You know what you put in the mail. They can't tell you they don't have it. You know what you submitted on the CFPB. It shows it. You can go back and look at the documents that you uploaded. So when you're on the phone with them, well, hey, I'm looking at my the portal right now, looking at my dispute, and it shows that I sent off 4 documents. You guys should have received 4 documents. All right, guys, this was a long one, but this is much needed, and I hope it helps a lot of you guys get some more results with cleaning things off of your credit if you didn't get it off in the first round or the first 2 rounds. this should definitely help you.
This will be your next step.